On our newscast tonight, President Park Geun-hye is set to meet with a Japanese counterpart for the first time since taking office. But expectations for any solid breakthroughs are rather low. Korea ranks 4th in the World Bank's Easy to Do Business report, beating rivals China and Japan with ease. And on the WHO report on processed meat consumption leading to cancer, experts assure that it all comes down to how much is consumed. All next on Primetime News. It's 10 p.m. on a Wednesday here in Korea. Welcome to Primetime News. I'm Daniel Choy. President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will hold their first summit on the sidelines of a trilateral meeting with China in Seoul. Will it serve as more than just an icebreaker between the two leaders? Few think so. Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
For the first time since taking office, President Park will hold summit talks with their Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe. The two leaders will meet next Monday in Seoul to discuss a range of sensitive issues.
The two leaders are expected to exchange in-depth opinions about pending bilateral issues, including the issue of the comfort woman.
More than 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve the Japanese military during World War II. Korea wants a sincere apology and compensation for the aging victims, although Japan claims that this was settled through a 1965 treaty and a private fund. The issue has kept the two leaders wide apart for more than 2.5 years. But there is little hope for any progress in their bilateral ties, with the two leaders not even taking the time to dine together.
There are no plans to hold a luncheon. This has been settled through discussions between Korea and Japan.
Some say the summit will be no more than just a token meeting on the sidelines of a meeting with China. Despite few expecting real gains from the summit between President Park and Prime Minister Abe, it comes as Seoul hosts the first trilateral summit in more than 3 years with Beijing and Tokyo on Sunday. And from this, the three leaders will adopt a joint statement outlining their commitment to bolster three-way cooperation, although relations with Japan may remain somewhat strained. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
The controversy surrounding the government's decision to only allow a single state-authorized history textbook for middle and high school students from 2017 doesn't look poised to abate anytime soon, with Korea's rival parties ratcheting up their tone. The ruling Saenuri Party continues to call on the opposition bloc to cooperate in parliamentary duties that enable the swift passage of bills related to 4 major reforms, including labor reforms. But while the Education Ministry is scheduled to officially confirm the direction of the textbook in a week, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy is preoccupied with shoring up public support to halt the government's move. The Liberal Party is also contemplating filing a constitutional complaint and plans opposing the plan until next April's general elections. The ruling Saenuri Party is seeking to ratify the KoreaChina FTA before the year is up. But the New Politics Alliance for Democracy is lukewarm about the bilateral pact. Ji Myung-gil has the latest on the back and forth between the rival parties.
The ruling Saenuri Party said Wednesday damages arising from the failure to implement tariff reductions could surpass $5 billion annually if ratification of the Korea-China FTA is delayed. Such a prospect is behind the ruling bloc urging the opposition's cooperation in gaining parliamentary approval for the FTA.
The ruling party and the government reconfirmed that ratifying the Korea-China FTA is a must to boost the nation's sagging exports and to revitalize our economy.
Kim, the ruling party's chief policymaker, hopes the upcoming meeting with the opposition bloc and government will provide headway in the legislature approving the accord. Korea's Trade Minister Yoon Sang-jaek has reaffirmed that with China as Korea's largest trade partner, ratifying the trade deal will benefit Korea.
The parliament approves the Korea-China FTA within this year, and tariffs will be removed starting next year, bringing advantage for Korean firms to export their products.
Minister Yoon said countries like Vietnam and New Zealand that signed similar agreements with Korea are closely watching for Seoul's approval. However, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy says they will weigh the FTA's pros and cons at the parliamentary committee level.
The Korea-China FTA must be dealt with thoroughly within the relative parliamentary committees for our national interest.
The MPAD is demanding the government first introduce measures to support potentially vulnerable industries, despite the government already earmarking nearly $800 million in subsidies for such sectors as agriculture and fisheries. Seoul and Beijing approved the trade deal last November and sealed it at a signing ceremony in June. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Korea plans establishing a task force that will be in charge of the country's indigenous fighter jet project by the end of this year. Military officials said on Wednesday the task force will be directly under the wing of the head of the Defense Acquisition Program Administration, or DAPA. The new team, with up to 80 personnel, will be responsible for producing 120 fighter jets by the year 2025, replacing Korea's aging fleet of F-4s and F-5s. The project chief will be appointed outside of government through a public contest. The South Korean Red Cross and the Unification Ministry will be conducting psychological well-being checkups on South Korean families who participated in the recent reunions of war-separated families. Officials say counselors and volunteer workers will meet the 643 participants in coming days and weeks, but did not elaborate on the exact timing. Those in need of extra psychological care will be introduced to appropriate health care facilities. Similar checkups were conducted following the February 2014 reunions. Back then, none of the participants required any serious aftercare. The family reunions are over, but efforts to keep inter-Korean exchanges going continue. This week, for the first time in 8 years, South and North Korean labor unions workers will meet for a friendly soccer competition. Kwon So-hwa has more on the sporting event designed to raise hopes for increased civic exchanges between the two Koreas.
Members of South Korea's two major labor unions departed to Pyongyang Wednesday for friendly soccer matches with their North Korean counterparts. This is the first series of matches in 8 years and the third in total. With two teams from each side of the border, matches will be held over 2 days. With 162 members, the South Korean delegation is the largest visiting the North for any event since 2010, when inter-Korean relations chilled following Seoul's sanctions on Pyongyang after an attack on the South Korean warship, the Cheonan, that killed 46 South Korean sailors.
We aim to have these games help set a tone for improving inter-Korean ties, and we will proactively step up efforts toward peace and reunification.
Seoul's Unification Ministry approved the games on Tuesday, with an official saying the matches are meant purely for sporting exchanges. The official added that the ministry has seen proactive cases of inter-Korean exchanges since August, following high-level talks between Seoul and Pyongyang. Examples include such areas as agricultural support and forest development, as well as a recent inter-Korean Catholic Mass in Pyongyang. Meanwhile, due to concerns of any political analysis arising from the soccer event, both labor groups are restricting media coverage. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
You may have thought twice before buying food products like bacon or ham after a report by the WHO claimed processed meat raises the risk of developing bowel cancer. But experts say Korean consumers shouldn't be too worried. Kim Min-ji explains why.
Bacon, sausages, and ham. These are among processed meat products that have been listed as cancer-causing substances by the World Health Organization. Processed meat now sits in the same category as alcohol and cigarettes. The WHO report sent shockwaves around the world, including Korea, where consumers quickly turned away from processed meat products. Korea's supermarket chain Lotte Mart saw sales of processed meat dip roughly 18% a day after the report was released from the same day last year. Home Plus also saw sales fall 15%.
After I heard the news, I don't really want to eat processed meat anymore, especially for my children. I'm thinking of opting for more fish or other products.
I used to really like ham and sausages, but now I don't think I can eat them as much. I think I'll have to cut back.
However, experts say it is the amount of processed meat consumed that heavily influences the chances of getting cancer. The findings show that 50 grams of processed meat increases the risk of colorectal cancer by almost 20%. This means eating roughly 18 kilograms every year. Yet data shows that Koreans consume an average of 4.4 kilograms annually. In other words, for the average Korean, the report should be seen as a precaution to look back on eating habits.
Just because they're in the same category as cigarettes doesn't mean processed meat products are equally dangerous. It's about how much we eat, as well as our diet overall. There are fat and other factors as well.
Korea's Food and Drug Ministry says it will draw up a task force comprised of experts to look into the matter and determine what effects processed meat has on the human body and draw up a guideline for recommended consumption of processed meat. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
According to a World Bank report, South Korea is one of the easiest countries in the world to do business in. While trailing behind Singapore, New Zealand, and Denmark, we topped regional rivals like China and Japan. Woo Se-young looks into the rankings.
Korea is the fourth easiest country to do business in, according to a World Bank report published Wednesday. Asia's fourth largest economy has been on a steady rise in rankings these past 6 years, achieving an immense leap from 19th in 2009. Singapore maintained its first place for a 10th straight year, followed by New Zealand and Denmark. Meanwhile, Japan tumbled from 29th to 34th, while China rose 6 notches to 84th. The annual Doing Business report ranks 189 countries based on 10 indicators, including obtaining license approvals, starting a business, and the ease of cross-border trading. In terms of G20 countries, Korea ranks first, while among OECD countries it ranks third behind New Zealand and Denmark. Korea's finance ministry attributes the upward trend to consistent government efforts to create a business-friendly environment with improved business rules and infrastructure. However, experts say the World Bank report may not reflect true business conditions as its evaluation standards are too general, overlooking certain restrictions.
There are a number of indirect barriers on labour, work sites and environmental conditions through market restrictions, pricing regulations and government controls. These create difficulties for businesses.
To address these shortcomings, the Finance Ministry says it will continue to improve rules on labour, work sites and the environment. It will also mitigate regulations on service and new technology industries. Woo Se-young, Arirang News.
Improving the local business climate and structural reforms may be vital. This is coming from Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol, who also points to the looming uncertainties stemming from the world's two largest economies. Kim Ji-yeon files us this report.
Uncertainty is a keyword that best describes recent conditions in the global economy. This is according to Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol at a monthly meeting with local economic experts on Wednesday, citing a potential U.S. rate hike and the slowdown of the Chinese economy. The BOK governor says the central bank is closely monitoring the Federal Open Market Committee this week, since a rate hike could have a negative impact on Korea's financial markets, such as a capital flight to emerging markets. He says mixed indicators about how well the U.S. economy is doing are making it more difficult to predict whether the Fed will start raising its key rate this or next year. He added, however, that the impact from a U.S. rate hike on the Korean economy as a whole will be limited due to the country's strong fundamentals, including its current account surplus and high level of foreign currency reserves. Yet the BOK governor didn't offer the same optimism regarding uncertainties arising from a slowdown in China, Korea's largest trading partner. Already, Korea's exports to China has dipped throughout the first 9 months of this year. To curtail negative effects, the BOK governor emphasized the importance of structural reforms of the local economy, including the government's deregulatory drive in the service sector, as well as altering the current local exporting pattern to China, from exporting processed materials and components to finished products. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Korea's leading shipbuilders continue to bleed, with industry analysts predicting the top 3 shipbuilders recording tremendous losses this year. The key driving factor, delays in offshore planned business. Shin Se-min takes a closer look.
Reeling from a decline in international expansion, coupled with a slump in demand for new vessels, Korea's top 3 shipbuilders are drastically losing more money. Industry data shows the top 3 shipbuilders, Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering, Hyundai, and Samsung Heavy Industries, are expected to post a combined loss of over 8 trillion won, roughly $7 billion this year. This is said to be the first time all 3 have individually bled annual operating losses of over 1 trillion won, roughly $0.8 billion. Already, Daewoo Shipbuilding, the country's second largest shipbuilder, logged an operating loss of over 3.7 billion in the first 9 months this year, resulting from increased costs arising from the delayed construction of low-priced ships and offshore facilities. Hyundai Heavy Industry, Korea's leading shipbuilder, isn't an exception, as it already suffered a 2.8 billion loss last year. Blaming the loss on dropping oil prices, Hyundai logged 3 quarterly losses this year, a continuation of 8 straight quarterly operating losses since late 2013. A shift in strategy to focus on deep-sea drilling rigs and production facilities is considered the major reason behind the continued deficits facing Korea's largest shipbuilders. Industry watchers say the delay in offshore rig projects also played a role, saying that once deliveries are made, the shipbuilders' profits will see a rebound. However, although it is difficult to predict when the companies will return to profit, watchers say the trend will likely continue at least until the end of this year. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The first legal hearing related to the ongoing family feud at the top of Korea's 5th largest conglomerate, Lotte Group, began this morning in Seoul. The group's elderly founder Shin Gyo-ko and his eldest son Shin Dong-ju are seeking an injunction against Lotte Shopping in order to read the company's accounting records, which is translated as an effort to emphasize the current chairman's business failures in China. This is the first hearing for one of the 3 lawsuits filed by Shin Dong-ju against his younger brother Dong-bin. None of the family members are at court today. In Korea, the elder brother Dong-ju filed a lawsuit against the management of Lotte Hotel and Lotte Hotel Busan earlier this month after being sacked from his executive position. He also filed a lawsuit in a Japanese court to nullify the dismissal of his father as chairman of Lotte Group. Further trial dates have not yet been set. And now we join Bruce Harrison and the News Center for International Headlines. Bruce, the United States and China, they're arguing over disputed territory in the South China Sea. Beijing claims a U.S. Navy warship came too close to one of its islands. It's an issue of control, isn't it, in those waters where trade is very important?
Hello, Daniel. And yes, a massive chunk of the world's trade flows through that area, so it's understandable why China's making territorial claims and why the U.S. wants to challenge those claims. This time it did it with a warship patrol. Both sides are essentially saying the other's making a power grab. We now hear from Son Jung-in on the dispute and whether a resolution's in sight.
U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter has confirmed that the guided missile destroyer USS Lassen traveled within 12 nautical miles of artificial islands created by China last year in the disputed Spratly Islands chain. Carter testified during a congressional hearing on Tuesday local time that the American destroyer entered the waters without Beijing's permission. He added that the U.S. will continue with the routine activities as it is allowed to do under international law.
We have said, and we are acting on the basis of saying that we will fly, sail, and operate wherever international law permits.
The disputed Spratly Islands have been a source of rising tensions between Washington and Beijing, especially since China transformed reefs in the area into small islands capable of supporting military facilities. The U.S. has repeatedly said it does not recognize Chinese claims to territorial waters around the artificial islands. The U.S. operations infuriated Beijing, prompting China's Vice Foreign Minister Zhang Yesui to summon U.S. Ambassador Max Baucus on Tuesday to protest what he called a serious provocation that threatens China's sovereignty and security interests. Watchers say the spike in tension is not expected to lessen anytime soon, as both countries are confronting the issue head-on. 손정인, Arirang News.
Germany says there's nothing wrong with its sausages. The country's been downplaying a World Health Organization report that said eating processed meat causes cancer. It's now classified alongside tobacco and asbestos as cancer-causing agents. But Germany's agriculture minister said too much of anything can make you unhealthy, or in other words, moderation's key. German tourists seem unfazed and hungry.
Man, food's food. And then anything in this world you enjoy, oh, eventually I'll find out this causes cancer. Oh, well, just enjoy your life. That's it. Stop worrying about things.
Analysts say Germans eat more processed meat than any other country, but could consider substitutes in the future because of the WHO report. Austria called the report a farce, and Agriculture Minister André Rupprechter said Austrian sausages are the best out there. He posted a photo on Twitter of him about to down a slice of Austria's finest. A new robot barely bigger than a smartphone may one day help conserve the world's oceans. California's startup Open Rose putting the finishing touches on Trident. The remote-controlled robot gives users a virtual reality experience of life underwater. Company founders Eric Stackel and David Lang say Trident's becoming popular with the science community as a low-cost research tool. And while the robot offers no immediate payoff for saving oceans, Lang hopes the experience could draw people into conservation.
The most important thing, the first thing, is we have to get people to care. And I think the way to do that is to allow them to engage.
That's what he says Trident's all about, allowing people to explore the ocean for themselves. The project was launched because Stackel wanted to find an alleged treasure chest of gold divers were unable to reach. They still haven't found the gold, but Trident appears to have a bigger mission now. And that's a glimpse of the world. Have a great night.
Hello, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather updates. Many regions have the coldest morning of the season this morning, including here in Seoul with a low of 5.6. And tomorrow is forecast to be even colder with a further mercury drop. And it seems like dramatic drops in temperatures will persist through this weekend, so you might want to take out your winter coats or jackets. The thermometer is expected to plunge to 2 degrees here in Seoul on Saturday morning. And tomorrow will kick off with sunny skies, but light rain is in the forecast for many parts late in the afternoon with 5 millimeters or less than 5 millimeters of rainfall, and mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province could even have some flurries during the day. On that note, let's take a closer look at the readings for tomorrow. Seoul will kick off at 5 before getting up to 12, and Daegu and Gwangju will rise to 18, while Busan tops out at 19. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 16 and 19, while Dokdo tops out at 13. So as I said, it's only going to get colder through the weekend, but readings will go back to average temperatures for this time of the year next week. So be sure to take good care of your health during these unseasonably chilly days. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's primetime news for you today. Thank you for watching. Good night or good day, depending on where you're tuning in from.